What's up, people? Thank you as always for passing by the channel. All right, let's do this. Q&A part 2 is about to go down. So many questions have come in. I do, as I said, want to try and keep it to about 45 minutes. I don't want it to go anywhere near an hour. I think that's a bit too long. Green tea is ready. It should be Jack Daniels, but it's still early where I am right now, so it's green tea. Laptop is ready with all the questions. Let's start with Twitter. What we got on Twitter before we go to the YouTube? All right, Ian Hamilton. What's the one great fight you could go back in time to be at? Hagler Hearns, all day long. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. You never ever get a shootout like that, ever, between two top elite fighters. How many top elite fighters kind of, the first round goes 10-10 because they're both a bit nervous and tentative? These two elite fighters thought, you know what, fuck that, let's just go to war. Hagler Hearns would have been ridiculous to be at. Next question, why is Lewis Hamilton not a national treasure like Joshua? Is it because he's been dominant and not had a rise and fall? No, I don't think it is that. I just think that people are not as interested in F1 as they were 15 years ago. If you think of F1 in the 90s, you had Senna, Prost, Schumacher, Hill, Mansell was still around. Others I can't even think of off the top of the head. And I still think fans back then thought it was 50-50. And what I mean by that is 50% driver, 50% car. Now I think fans think it's 80-20, 80% car, 20% driver. It might not be like that, but that's the perception people have. He literally could go on and break Schumacher's record of 7 Formula 1 titles, and I still don't think it'd be appreciated just because of that. Which WrestleMania would you have loved to have been at? WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. I can't remember what WrestleMania number that was. And one of the first ones I ever remember as a kid, I think it was a WrestleMania that took place at Wembley Stadium and the Legion of Doom came in on Harley Davidson's. Sick. What Liverpool loss to Man United was the most painful for you? Whew, there's been too many. There's been too many, but it has to be FA Cup final when Cantona kind of took that step back and volleyed it into the bottom corner. That bastard. Have you ever rooted from a boxer from your area or nearby because of that reason? I haven't, but I guess it's just a massive coincidence that I'm from Stratford in East London and my favourite ever boxer, Nigel Benn, is literally 10 minutes down the road in Ilford. Just a coincidence, I guess. Your top 5 dream sport interviews. Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, and Roy Keane. Don't know why, but that's my top 5 off my head. I think if I think about it, it'd probably be a bit different. All right, let's jump straight into YouTube. Fucking hell. 62 comments. I'm guessing that's probably 62 or more questions at least. Pretty Boy Flizzy asks, why is there so many fanboys than actual boxing fans, MMA fans? I think because boxing and MMA are really people's second sports. I think a lot of MMA fans in America anyway, really love NFL, NBA, and baseball. And over here, I think a lot of boxing fans, and you can hear it through the chants sometimes in the boxing arenas, are mainly football fans. So they're not really hardcore fans at either sport, as they are for their own first sport, if that makes any sense. So I think that's why there are a lot of fanboys. And look, I'm in a sense a fanboy as well. I mean, I've got my favourite fighters. I think I've said it on the channel before. I love Anthony Joshua. I've always loved the likes of Carl Froch, Gennady Golovkin. So in a sense, you're calling me a fanboy, blood. It's all right. It's okay. Mr. KWX Ben 1966. Where did you get that name from? I mean, what? It must mean something. What is your biggest bugbear in boxing? Mine is the weight discrepancies, even with 24-hour weigh-ins. That's up there for me. That's up there for me. I think my biggest though is all the sanctioning bodies, right? I mean, you guys probably know the normal 4 or 5, but trust me, being in Africa, there are so many. I mean, there's WBF, there's WBU, there's IBC. There literally is fucking thousands. There's my biggest bugbear, 100%. Deej Davis asks, Povetkin versus Ortiz, who wins? Good question. I would have to say Ortiz because I think Povetkin is done after the AJ loss. Whereas I think, although Ortiz lost to Wilder, he seems to have recouped a lot better. He's not gone hiding. He wants big fights again. I'm not convinced we'll see Povetkin again. I don't know. I think that might be it for Povetkin. What is he, 39-40? That might be it. Captain Rhodes, old school Captain Rhodes, asks, if Chisora beats White, does he deserve a title shot? I mean, that's the spanner in the works. I've done a video about this, yesterday, saying it. I mean, surely, if you beat Dillian White, who's a top 5 heavyweight, you get the title shot next, right? Don't know. I mean, Eddie Hearn's not ruling him out. Eddie Hearn mentioned Chisora's name as one of the possible options if he beats White in April. Fans are not going to be happy about Chisora versus AJ at all. At all. Mr. Ish T asks, Billy Joe Saunders needs to come back and have 3 fights. Who should they be? And will he rise to the top of the middleweight division? Because I think he will take many of those middleweights to school. I don't think that, but he's a great boxer. There's no two ways about it. But in terms of who I think he should fight, I do want to see him against Demetrius Andrade, that fight that was cancelled. I want to see him against Danny Jacobs, and I want to see him against Jamal Charlo. Is it Jamal or Jamel? One of those Charlo brothers anyway. I don't know if he'll take all those guys to school. His biggest win is David Lemieux. He looked good against David Lemieux, but I think all those 3 I mentioned will beat David Lemieux easy as well. So it'll be an interesting thing. Look, for us right now, the fact is I think the middleweight division is probably the deepest with the light heavyweight division. So if he does come back, he's going to be in good fights no matter what. Big Mike Free or Big Mick Free asks, how come all these top fighters in the past few years, Brook, Khan, DeGale and Groves, seem to have aged overnight in one fight? Is it the hard fights they had and just caught up? Is it father time? It's sad that these fighters can't seem to perform at the high levels they used to. Yeah, it's just tough fight, especially Groves. I thought Groves was done after the first Carl Froch fight. He done well to recruit. I then thought he was done after the second Carl Froch fight. He done well to get a world title, but he's probably done now. The girls had some tough fights. Tough fights. So has Khan. Khan's been in brutal fights. I mean, you think of Canelo, you think of Maidana, he got knocked out by Danny Garcia, Brados Prescott back then. I think Khan's done well just to still be relevant and still be here. So rather than look at them as, why can't they do it anymore? I think we just have to appreciate that they've all had 10 plus years at a very high level, apart from Brook. Global Frank 95 says, what is your favorite weight class in boxing and why? I've got 2. The middleweight division, just because all my favorite boxers aligned in that division. My favorite boxer, Sugar Ray Leonard, obviously eventually went to middleweight. Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, Michael Watson. That era in the British scene in the 90s made me fall in love with the middleweights. Then you look to America, you had Hopkins, Roy Jones, James Toney, legends. And the heavyweights, right? You've got to love heavyweights. I grew up, like all of you, I don't care what anyone says, knowing about Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. So I think the heavyweights is what makes boxing. And I think we're seeing it now with some of the good heavyweight fights. DMD asks, hi Ade, in an ideal world for me, is Wilder's camp give Tyson step-aside money and fights AJ in April? AJ puts him to sleep. I'm assuming you're talking about AJ putting Wilder to sleep. And that paves the way for Fury versus AJ in the summer at Wembley. After that performance, I would favour AJ over Wilder. I have to admit. I know that we knew going in that Deontay Wilder wasn't the best boxer and he relies a lot on that right hand. But he's not just a bad boxer, he's an awful boxer as far as I'm concerned. I think AJ could capitalise on some of the mistakes that he makes. Fury versus AJ in the summer would be flipping huge. Wembley's not even big enough for it. It'll be huge. Born Again Biker. Who wins, Cheeseman or Robbie Fowler's cousin, Anthony Fowler? Would the Liverpool connection sway your judgment? It might do. I think it's a great fight. What do you think? It is a good fight. I do like Anthony Fowler a lot. He looks like someone that lives the life, and he reminds me a bit of Carl Froch. I know that's a big name drop, but he does. He's got to get through Fitzgerald first. Cheeseman, I think, is probably the better boxer of the two. I just think Fowler could be tougher, so it makes a great fight. It definitely isn't boxer versus puncher, but it's close. Good fight. I would favour Fowler late. Castleview Promotions asks, Ade, random question. What is your dream boxing job? I know you currently work in the boxing media, but it can be anything. I do like commentating. Look, I've no background in commentating, so it's all new to me, but I do like the thrill of being ringside and talking about a fight with someone very knowledgeable. So I'm kind of in my dream job right now. I do like the idea of sitting around a table kind of like this and talking boxing with someone on camera, but I think commentating at a live fight, you can't beat it. It's like when everyone says go to watch a live event, right, rather than watch it at home. And I think I'm lucky to be ringside watching these guys fight. Josh Blackburn says, do you think Hearn, Matchroom are spreading themselves too thin? Absolutely, with all these shows in different countries. And do you think it will come back to bite them in the arse? I can't remember the last good Sky Sports fight card non-pay-per-view. Yeah, touching on the last part straight away, nor can I. Nor can I. I mean, look at this Brook one recently, shocking. And I wouldn't mind if the pay-per-views were so enormous and gigantic, almost like some of the UFC pay-per-views recently, then we wouldn't moan too much about the non-pay-per-view ones, but they're shocking. The pay-per-views are shocking, and everything's just shocking right now. And I think he is spreading himself too thin. If you look at all the cards that he's had just in the last 4 or 5 weeks, obviously we've got Chisora versus White coming up. We had Brook. He had a show in Italy. He had a show in Monte Carlo. I mean, 4 cards, in 5 weeks. It's just, I like boxing, but it's just too much when they're all very thin. Lewis Price asked, best trainer in boxing? Fucking, that's a tough question. No idea. I actually think trainers are slightly overrated. I really do, and I know I might get stick for saying that, but it almost reminds me a bit of football and this Guardiola Mourinho thing. Look, let Guardiola manage Stoke City, get him in the Premier League and get him to top 4, then I would say, you know what, I'm wrong. But I always feel like sometimes it's about the boxer. I think sometimes it's about having a very, very good talent, and then yes, a trainer can sprinkle a little bit of magic on top, but I think it's about having a very good talent. So I'm just going to give you a cop-out answer, and I'm going to say the best trainer right now is Vasyl Lomachenko's dad. Jezza Kyle asked, prime Naz versus Loma versus Tank versus Mikey Garcia at featherweight. Tank out of that straight away. I know he can punch, but no. I mean, you're talking about legends there for me. Mikey Garcia is like, what, 4-weight world champion. Naz is one of my greatest fighters of all time, and Loma's going to go down as a GOAT. Not the greatest of all time, but in the conversation, I think Loma's that good. I would have to favour Loma because I just think he's that good. If it was at lightweight, I would have said Mikey Garcia, because I think Mikey Garcia's size advantage will be too much. But Loma at featherweight, too good for me. BG London says, what is your favourite boxing movie and documentary? Is it When We Were Kings, the one with Foreman and Ali, all behind the scenes at the Rumble in the Jungle? That's my favourite movie / documentary. But my favourite out-and-out movie, Rocky. You can't beat it. You can't beat it, brother. Andres Gomez says, why do you think African boxers haven't been able to take to the world stage? Heki Butler and Tete have been around for a minute, but I've always found it strange that such a gigantic continent in terms of population doesn't have much more world champions, even than countries like Thailand, Japan, or the Philippines. Is it a lack of infrastructure, no popular support for the sport, lack of combat sport culture? Good question. And I guess that's why I'm here. I'm almost here in Africa now to kind of find out why. What I will say, just from my small time being here, is that there is a super amount of talent. I'm not just saying that because I'm African and I'm in Africa, but going to the gyms, and I've been to a few gyms in Cape Town and Johannesburg in South Africa, and there are some super boxers. But what happens is, unlike, for example, if you have a prospect with Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren, that guy isn't fighting anyone until he's like 15-0, right? If you're a prospect in Africa, you could get a title shot if you're 4-0, 5-0, and you're getting matched hard from the get-go. There is no, I think, direct route here. There's no one kind of really putting things in place where these boxers can, I don't know, learn their craft, get to 16, 17-0, then go and challenge guys in Europe. I think we're seeing them in Europe when they're done, they're shot because they've been matched too hard. Andrew Gomez asked another question. Do you have any what-if in boxing scenarios that make you curious? Like, what if Golovkin's promoter had gotten him good fights from the time he was in Germany and fought Sturm, Abraham, and then Martinez? Good question. Or similar with Rigonda, who was frozen out of his prime by being ducked. My biggest what if, and it's sort of been following me like a shadow for years, is Prince Naseem Hamed. He retired at 28, 29, and I do kind of wonder, what if he was really serious and on his game? I think we all saw the build-up to the Barrera fight, what he was doing in the hotels, and it just was bullshit. And I kind of wonder if Naz had a proper trainer when he hit his peak, and I say hit his peak about 25, 26, what would have become of Naz? I think Naz was one of the most awkward, fluid, hardest hitting featherweights I've ever seen. And it's a shame that he didn't kind of live up to it. Stefan Broom asked, 2, 3 or 4 years from now, who do you see at the top of the tree in the heavyweight division? And do you believe that there will be an undisputed champion, Fury, AJ Wilder, or maybe a surprise? Good question. I do believe that if Fury rematches Wilder, Fury beats Wilder, and if Fury fights AJ, Fury beats AJ. If Fury's on his game in terms of lives the life. So Fury, I think, out of all of them, I know that AJ's got the belts, but I think Fury out of all of them could become undisputed world champion because I think he can beat both. In terms of 2, 3 or 4 years from now, I still think it might be AJ just because of Fury's ill discipline. I'm not sure if Fury, I know he's done well to get down from 400 pounds and he looks the part now, but can he keep that up? I don't know. So if I had to put my money on someone, I would say it would be AJ. I think Usyk is good. You mentioned Usyk here, but might just be too small, and I don't think he can dominate the heavyweights because I think someone will catch up with him. And Dubois, I can't mention Dubois in that subject, my man, I can't. Ethan H says, do you not think that this Brook criticism is way over the top? Frampton's first fight under Moore and a bit out of the ring was against Horatio Garcia and he got dropped. Good point. Billy Joe Saunders looked terrible against Akavov. Good point. And Khan literally got dropped and then badly hurt 8 rounds into his fight against Samuel Vargas. You've got a good point. Look, I think I was one of the people that criticised Brook. And I think it's just because of Brook's predicament right now. We don't know what Brook's doing, right? And I think nor does he. We don't know if he's fighting at 147 or 154. We don't know what route he's going at. So unfortunately for Brook, every performance from in on now needs to be good. You are right though about the trainer. He's only been with that trainer for what, a couple of months. So it's going to take time. But still, I expected Brook to look a lot better against that unknown guy that, let's be honest, no one had heard of before. No one. Ryan Omarod says, Ade, do you think the IBO will ever become a legitimate world title like the WBO has? No, I don't. There was a time in the late 90s, early 2000s where legit people had that belt around their waist. Floyd had it, Lennox Lewis had it, Joshua has it now, Roy Jones Jr., Ricky Hatton, Manny Pacquiao. But I think that I don't want it to become a legit belt because I'm tired of these belts, if I'm honest with you. I feel like 4 is enough. 4 plus the ring. And then you got these kind of fictional ones like Tyson Fury talks about, like lineal. There's almost too many titles going around. So I think the less titles we have, the better. I would prefer just to chop some titles away, if I'm honest with you. Boo Boo Tim Tim, like that name. What can fans do to prevent outright dodgy judges' scorecards? Absolutely nothing. We can't do nothing. I guess we've got more of a voice because of social media, things like YouTube and stuff, but in terms of what we can do, fuck all. Original Individual, the best name on YouTube by far, says, if the Wilder Fury rematch happens, will it be in the UK? Old Trafford would be epic. That would be epic, and it would be fair for it to be at Old Trafford, and I think it would fill it. I think it could get 60, 70,000 in there. I think that boxing is so popular right now in the UK that we could do those numbers. But I think economics will dictate where it takes place, and I think financially, the US just makes more sense. Plus, I think they do so much more better in promoting their fights than we do. I mean, in the lead up to this Wilder versus Fury fight, I think Fury, in terms of interviews in the UK, probably went on BT Sports and Good Morning Britain. He went to the US and I think he went on about 20 chat shows. That's the difference. They put more effort in it. Siniche Sumner asks, is there any prospect in Africa that fighters should be looking out for in any division? Let me answer that one first. There's a couple, but there's a heavyweight who is from Ukraine but has lived over here now for 2 or 3 years called Vladislav Serenko. Watch him, look out for him. I heard that he dropped Dubois in sparring when he went over to spar against Povetkin. Dropped him hard. If the winner of Dylan White or Derek Chisora, should one of them fight Jarrell Miller? The winner? No, the loser. I think the loser should fight Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller's done nothing for me. The loser should fight him. I think Chisora versus Jarrell Miller will be fantastic. Joe Lloyd asked, Ted Cheeseman versus Anthony Fowler, who wins? I just answered that one. And also, who's your young British fighter of the year? And last one, where do you see Lewis Ritson this time next year? I hope that Lewis Ritson changes trainer and comes again. I think, and look, this is no disrespect, I've done a video about this a couple of months ago. I think his dad's taking him as far as he can go. And I think he needs to work on a lot. The first thing he needs to work on is his foot and head movement. Go and watch the Scotty Cardle performance of Lewis Ritson. He's only lucky that Cardle can't punch, right? Because Cardle tagged him in the first round loads of times. Young British fighter of the year. Good question. Good question. I don't think there's been anyone that stands out. Brooklyn 2010 says, Ade, do you think any of the British light heavyweight prospects can win a world title? If so, who and why? I don't think any of them can. I don't think any of them can. Watching Adonis Stevenson's fight against, is it Godzik? I never pronounced that guy's name correct. And even watching the likes of Bivol against Pascal and Alvarez against Kovalev, there's a new guard. And this guard is frightening. I mean, look at the 4 world champions. They're young, they're hungry, they're good boxers, and they're just better than the likes of Yard and Buatsi. Everyone will talk about Buatsi, but put Buatsi in with Bertabiev, Bivol, Godzik, Alvarez, even fucking people that haven't got titles like Badu Jack and Kovalev, lights out. Jason Bennell says, what did you think of the Loma versus Pedraza fight? Loma looked good but didn't seem to be himself. Do you think he was being careful of the shoulder, or is Pedraza that good? I think it is just a case of the shoulder, if I'm honest with you. I was watching that fight as well, and I was reading up about his injury that he had in his right shoulder. I don't know why I done that. I'm supposed to do that. A lot of doctors were commentating saying it really is an injury where recovery time is about 8 to 12 months. He came back after 6-7 months. So I think he came back too quick, but he still looked phenomenal. And that round 11 was frightening. But again, taking nothing away from Pedraza. Pedraza's a good fighter. He's only been beaten by Tank, and Tank hits like a tank. So no shame in that. Coran Brez says, which KO was better, Inui or Tio? I'm guessing when you say Tio, you're talking about the guy that fought on the undercard of Loma. Ty. Both of them are great knockouts. If you've not seen them on YouTube, go and check those knockouts out. Frightening. Samuel Victor says, how long do you take in the shower? A long time, brother. A long time. Neil Smith says, Ade, just heard about the first transgender fight this past weekend. So she was born a female, but is now a man who fights men who have been on all types of hormone therapy. What is this? And possibly PEDs and steroids. What is your take on this? And also, if a guy decided that he wanted to be a female so that he could compete against female fighters, wouldn't that be confusing? Wouldn't that be confusing for the commissions to sanction? Is this just feminism gone a step too far? I know it's more than one question, but this stuff baffles me. Dude, that baffles the fuck out of me as well. I did know about this in MMA. There was an MMA man, who was a man, I don't want to get politically incorrect here, a man that then turned to a woman and wanted to compete against women. And I don't think the fights were sanctioned. I think a few underground fights were sanctioned, but I don't think when that person tried to turn professional that the fights were sanctioned. Rightly so, right? Fuck, that is confusing. But it's weird because it's the other way around. A man, so she was born a female, but now fights men. I guess that might even things out a bit, but look, dude, I don't even want to go down this road before my channel gets locked off. That's a confusing one. And Michael Smith says, I would love to see weigh-ins on Fight Day brought back. Do you think it will ever happen? No, not at all. And I understand the reasons. I was a fan of that as well, but because these fighters cut so much weight, what they're doing is they're limiting the amount of water and oxygen to the brain. It takes at least, I read, 24 to 36 hours for that to come back to normal. So they have to kind of weigh in the day before just to be able to get the recovery correct. I mean, there has been a lot of dangers of fighters weighing in and then an hour later fighting, and it's big problems. So as much as I agree with you, it makes it more of a fair kind of playing field. It's just not going to happen. It's too dangerous. Abdul Aziz says, hi Ade, prior to doing Box Talk and your solo channel, thank you, that means you watched a bit of Box Talk. Did you have any background in broadcasting or journalism? All the best for the future. Thanks very much, Abdul. No, none at all. Me and Ryan, most of you might know, met each other at Islington Council. Both of us work for Islington Council. That's a place in London for people that are wondering. And fuck me, I hated it, but I had no experience about broadcast or journalism beforehand. I literally just done this, put a camera in my face and started talking, and somehow made a career out of it. Don't know how. Alexa Savkovic asks, what do you think of Filip Hrgovic? Good fighter. I don't hear a lot of people talking about him, but I think he's one of the best heavyweight prospects. He is. I think he is a heavyweight prospect, and I think there's a few heavyweight prospects. In UK, obviously, we've got the likes of Nathan Gorman and Daniel Dubois. In America, there is a couple of other kids as well. So I think he's kind of in that kind of bracket of guys that are good prospects. We need to see a bit more. I think he fought Kevin Johnson a few days ago, but Kevin Johnson's more than just, he's just a punch bag right now. So it's difficult to judge him based on the Kevin Johnson fight. We need to see him in against someone in and around the top 30 before we can kind of say, yeah, good prospect. Neil Patel says, what sports did you play growing up? I was actually a very good footballer. I know everyone says that, but I was actually scouted by a lot of teams. My school, I went to a school called Rokeby, and in my class was Alton Fairwell, who's my best friend right now. He went on to play for Tottenham, England under 21s, Leyton Orient Hull, and Trezor Candle, who went on to play for Leeds. I think played for Bournemouth, Cambridge as well. I was supposed to do that. I went and I got chosen for Essex Schools, which is like the biggest thing just below your national level, so just below England. And in my Essex Schools team, under 15 and under 16s, were like John Terry, Bobby Zamora, Patrick Agaman, who else was there? Paul Konchesky, all of those guys. Basically, if you got into that team, you're supposed to make it professional. It didn't happen for me. I don't know why. Answers on the postcard. A, B, C, D, E, F. Yes, Eddie, mate. Which prospects from Matchroom or Frank Warren do you think will be world champions? And what's the next question? Name your fights of the year. In my opinion, mine has to be GGG Canelo 2. All right, let's start with the prospects one. You know what it is? I don't really rate any of these prospects anymore. I mean, it felt like there were so many prospects a couple of years ago, but who is there? I mean, who is there right now? I mean, a lot of people might mention the likes of Ritson and Josh Kelly and Catterall. I think they'll all get smoked, and it's happened to Ritson, unfortunately, already. But I think once they step up a levels, they're all done. Conor Benn, no. Buatsi's the one that everyone talks about. We'll see, but he's in a frighteningly tough light heavyweight division. So no one really jumping out at me. I tell you who I do like, but I don't think he's going to be a world champion. Nathan Gorman. He looks quite good for a big man at heavyweight. So we'll see what happens with him. I think he'll smash Dubois as well. Name your fights of the year. Mine has to be GGG Canelo 2. Fights of the year were GGG Canelo, Fury Wilder, Wilder Ortiz, Linares Lomachenko. What do you think about people like Johnny Nelson and Adam Smith on the Sky broadcast? Because that clown Nelson chats a lot of shit. He gets a lot of stick, does Nelson. I don't think he chats that much shit, but he gets a lot of stick. But I do think they need to freshen it up. I think they recently had Andy Lee commentating. I think he's very good. Get him in the commentary booth. Tony Bellu's not bad. I know people don't really like Tony Bellew. It's almost Marmite-ish, but I think he's good. And so is Dave Coldwell. So I think they need to freshen up a little bit, and it'll be good again. Who are the number ones in all the divisions for you? Oh, that's a big question. I might have to answer that one another time. Sorry, dude, but that'll take ages. Omar Gulad says, Ade, as a black man, did you feel conflicted supporting Tyson Fury, especially when historic context was brought into the argument? Not really. I don't think Tyson Fury meant or did anything wrong. I think Wilder kind of maybe read what Tyson Fury was talking about in the wrong way. Let's be honest. Look, if anything comes up and it's racial, obviously I'm gonna, as a black man, gonna go and support the black dude. But 9 times out of 10, in fact 10 times out of 10, when I'm watching boxing, race is out the window for me, and I'm just picking my best fighters and picking who I can relate to more. And I don't think it has to come down to race all the time. Michael Smith asked, Canelo versus Ward at 168-pound super fight, who wins? Ward would smoke him. Ward would smoke Canelo at 168. You're talking about a great there. Canelo is good, but at 168, no chance. Ward would even make 160 and smoke him. Neil Patel asked, what part of London did you grow up? Stratford, East London. Matt asked, do you think Eddie Hearn is struggling? Has he taken on too much with DAZN? Will the quality drastically drop on Sky, as you saw on the last night's appalling show in Sheffield? I agree. I think he's taken on way too much with DAZN. It's just spreading himself thin, right? We spoke about this earlier in another question, but it's too thin now. His stable looks weak. Who does he really have coming through? Who does he have coming through? I think he put a lot of stock into Josh Kelly and Lewis Ritson, and it hasn't quite worked out. It might work out with Josh Kelly, but it hasn't quite worked out yet, so we'll see what happens going forward. The complete mess he made of the first AJ versus Wilder negotiations, you can see why it wasn't made and how he's admitted himself he's trying a different approach, but you still know it'll be Wilder Fury 2 next year. I feel like, you know, the problem was with this all Wilder versus Joshua thing is it just almost became too out in the open. It almost felt like Eddie Hearn was doing a video about it with IFL TV, talking about it every single second. And you feel like negotiations like that, which are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions, should be behind closed doors. We as fans really shouldn't even know about them, right? It doesn't happen like that. It's crazy. Walkman85 says, Ade, MMA question. What are your thoughts on John Jones once again returning to the octagon? Do you think he will now finally get his act together and fulfill his potential as an MMA superstar? Let me ask that question first. I don't think he's going to get his act together because that's John Jones. I accept him for what he is now. He will drink, he will take cocaine, he will party. But don't get it twisted. He still, for me, is the greatest MMA guy we've seen ever. And that's above Anderson Silva, that's above GSP, that's above Demetrius Johnson. I think he's that good. And I think once he steps in the octagon, you're dead. I don't care who you are. He can jump up to heavyweight as well. I think they're dead as well. Also, what are your thoughts on Brock Lesnar crossing over from MMA to WWE? I think it's quite good. I remember years ago, as a kid, when I used to think that WWE was real, you almost wanted to see these guys in a real fight, right? You wanted to see if they could actually really scrap. And I think Brock Lesnar is trying to show that he can scrap a little bit anyway. And I think for the UFC, they must love it because they get all those WWE fans tuned in to watch Brock Lesnar. So for them, it's a win-win. Second question, who wins a World Boxing Super Series at light heavyweight? Woo! 4 great champions, but who is the best? Beterbiev, Alvarez, Bivol, or Godzik? And do you still rate Kovalev and Jack? Yes, I still do rate Kovalev and Jack, and I still think Kovalev could shock Alvarez in the rematch that goes down, in a couple of months, I think. Who's the best out of them lot? Beterbiev, Alvarez, Bivol, or Godzik? I'm going to say, I'm sure I'm saying his name incorrect, but I'm going to say Godzik after that performance against Adonis Stevenson. Nadim Bajwa says it looks like Ukraine has started an intellectual form of boxing, starting with the Klitschko brothers as pioneers and extending to Usyk and Loma. Do you see this movement as the immediate future of boxing? I don't know if it's a movement started by the Klitschkos. I think of the Klitschkos, yes, they were very intellectual, but they were very boring, especially their style of boxing. I don't mean to be disrespectful by that. When you look at Usyk and Loma, these guys are just unreal because they can box, they're intellectual, obviously, and they're flipping phenomenal. So they've got a bit of everything sprinkled all over them. So I think it's almost them starting their movement. And I feel like a lot of Ukrainian boxers coming through now will be like Usyk and Loma rather than like the Klitschko brothers. Another question, who has the most devastating singular punch of all time? Foreman, Shavers, Wilder, or someone else? Good question. There's been some fucking hard-hitting fighters, you know. Some hard-hitting fighters. Ben could hit. Joe McClellan could hit. Mike McCallum, the body snatcher, could hit. Obviously, you've mentioned heavyweights here. Foreman, Shavers, Wilder. Obviously, you put Tyson there as well. Some heavy hitters, mate. Sonny Liston could hit. I have to go to Foreman. Foreman actually lifted up Joe Frazier. Like, he hit him, and Joe Frazier lifted up like the Rocky movie. I've never seen that before. Never. John Goodwin asked, do you genuinely think that Brook wants a big fight at 154, or he just wants the cash-out fight with Khan? In my opinion, he wants Khan. He even said he will go down to 147, bending over backwards to Khan's demands. I don't think he wants a big fight at 154, and you can't blame him. Some of the guys at 154 are quite frightening, but I think there are good matchups in there against respectable names. You look at names like Austin Trout. Austin Trout is still serviceable, still a name, has got a lot of history in the 154 division, former world champion. That's a good matchup. But I think for Brook, he looks at the financials, and Eddie Hearn does this, right? He puts down all the financials, what you will earn fighting that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. And fighting Khan must be just through the roof. And he must look at him and think that's the easiest fight as well for him. So look, you can't blame him for chasing Khan. Stella asks, Ade, please clarify for everyone to know a 10 count is a count to 10. It is not 10 seconds. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And this is so confusing. Obviously, it's been brought up now because of the Wilder Fury thing. But I remember growing up years ago when Mike Tyson fought Buster Douglas. And I think everyone forgets that Tyson put Buster Douglas down. And it was the longest 10 count for Buster Douglas ever. Honestly, looking back, it was about a 14-second count. So it's almost dictated, I think, by the referee. Obviously, the referee will go to ringside and try to catch up the count from ringside. But once the referee gets the count himself, I mean, they fly through some of these counts. 6, 7, 8, 9. And sometimes it's 6, 7. So it's just very difficult to know what is a 10 count nowadays. Ethan H. asks, why do you think Pacquiao was able to get away with blatant cheating for so long? Like, it was obvious what the guy was doing. The only conclusion I've been able to come up with is the fans' hatred towards Floyd. I don't know about that, but I do think he cheated. I do. You guys, I don't sit on the fence here. And I think that he was such a big superstar at the time that he was almost just too big for boxing at the time. There was a time when Pacquiao was massive, like a crossover star. And you don't, I mean, you don't catch massive superstars. That's why I was so shocked they caught Canelo. But I think it will come out eventually. I think someone will tell the story in a book in years to come, and I think it will be seen that that period where he kind of just dominated and smashed people, there's something going on there. Brandon Yu says, even though the World Boxing Super Series is most likely to be cancelled, it seems like it will be. Who would win a final between Inouye and Zolana Tete? Inouye all day long. P.S. Arsenal will smash you lot on the 29th. Are you mad? Smash us where? Anfield. You must have to go check the record about our wins and losses at Anfield in the league. I can't remember the last time we lost at Anfield in the league. Ain't happening. This ain't fucking the Emirates, matey. Joe Mansfield asked, Bivol or Bertabiev? I wasn't that impressed with Bivol against John Pascal, and I wasn't that impressed with Bertabiev against Callum Johnson. Remember, he got put down. I would have to toss the coin and say Bertabiev, just. Boxing Monkey asked, Ade, great stuff, mate. Thank you, brother. 5 fights, 1 answer at each, please. GGG versus Hagler. Pacquiao versus Chavez Jr. at light welter. Woo! Pacquiao at 140. Peak Pacquiao on the juice. Draw. Floyd versus Ray Leonard at welterweight. Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm not having that. I mean, I think we think of Floyd at 147, but I think Floyd's best weight was 135. Tommy Hearns versus Canelo at light middle. Tommy Hearns by decapitation. Duran versus Shane Mosley at lightweight. Oh, Duran was the best Roberto Duran is probably the best lightweight that ever lived. FIFA JR asked, do you really think that AJ has a chin issue? Love your videos. I'm a new sub. Thank you for subbing. Much appreciated. Thank you to everyone that subbed. Much appreciated. No, I don't. I think this thing is bollocks, and I think it's just grown legs that weren't needed. I think it's absolute bollocks. He's been hurt against Klitschko, and he got wobbled for all of 10 seconds against Dillian White. Think about this. No one ever says Tyson Fury has a chin issue. I think Tyson Fury's been down like 5 times. See, it's just bullshit, innit? Guys, that's it. I've tried to answer as many questions as possible. Remember, I did say I want to try and keep it to 35 to 40 minutes. I think we're kind of at that time right now. Not easy answering all those questions, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave your comments below. I will try and do another one, maybe the start of 2019, to kind of reflect on the whole of 2018. I think that'll be a bigger one, maybe an hour long, but that's the end of it. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Much appreciated. Peace.